Hello, all you lovely people. It is Professor Malat with another weekly overview. We are in week 9. This is rough draft week, folks. Don't want to freak you out, but it's going to start speeding downhill from here on out. So, we have a lot of resources and a lot of lectures to help you in drafting this longer essay that is due on Sunday. I'm asking that you try to submit a draft that fulfills at least half of the length requirement. That way I have some material to work with so that I can provide you some feedback and guidance. That is, of course, if you're struggling to get the whole paper done. I want you to try your very best to get as close to the required length, and we'll talk about those details in a minute when we go in and look at the assignment page. But at least halfway, that way I have some material to work with and your peer reviewer, your classmates have something for which they can provide feedback for revision. There is a required peer review for this assignment. It will be due next Friday. You have to submit a draft in order to be assigned a peer's paper to review. If you submit your draft late, that is, if you submit your draft at midnight on that Sunday or early Monday morning coming up, that would be what, the 20th into the 21st, you're not going to get that automatically assigned peer draft. You'll need to contact me so I'm aware that you don't have a peer's paper where you can do the peer review. So if you are late with your submission, even if it's a minute late, unless I go in and change the settings, you won't get a paper to review. So it's really, really important that you do this in a timely manner. We have a short window in which to get peer reviews finished and then also to work on your revisions. We're doing this quickly so that we can move on from the research phase and start working on the fun stuff of the remix before we get to Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving is really what, a little over a month away. And then after Thanksgiving, it's the end of the semester. So yeah, we take a break for Thanksgiving, then we come back for a last week of classes, and then after that you will have finals week. There is no final in this class, so what we finish up doing is the end thing, right? So anyway, this week you have some resources and you're learning about how to properly cite your sources in your writing so that you're not plagiarizing from others. It's really important to watch the attribution of sources or how to cite a source lecture. I can't even remember what I called it down below. MLA Works Cited lecture and MLA in-text citation lecture. It's really important that you watch those lectures so you understand how you can integrate that source material with your own writing. The lecture will cover things like quotation, paraphrasing, summaries, as well as some MLA citation. I also have a Canvas page that I will show you in a moment that includes a list of resources and videos that explain more in detail the MLA Works Cited page. So let's take a look at that more about the Works Cited page that I just said is in Canvas. Here we have links to Purdue OWL, the Works Cited page. It talks about formatting, and you can even look up a sample once you're in the Purdue OWL website. If you're unsure of what a Works Cited page should look like. There's also a link here to Citation Machine, the MLA section of that website. I also have video tutorials on how to use that citation generator. There's also a video on MLA citation, plus the formatting tips for both Microsoft Word and Google Docs, if you haven't gotten it down pat just yet. Citation Machine is super easy to use. The only thing you might need to do is go in and edit some of the things to make sure that you provide accurate information. You also need to make sure that you were on their MLA 9 section as the format for your citations. And it's as simple as putting in the URL for your web page or the electronic journal that you're citing from. But again, remember to double check that the information is correct, and you can do that by accessing the website that you're taking the citation from. Some electronic sources won't have named author, and that's perfectly acceptable. I made these comments in your annotated bibliographies. So the next thing that you would put instead of the name of the entity that publishes the information, thinking that you need to have a name, you don't have to have a name. The element that you would use as the first listing for that article or that web page, whatever it happens to be that does not have a named author, you use the title of that page in quotes as the first element for your citation. Again, I have left significant feedback for those of you who needed it in your annotated bibliography, so please make sure that you go in and look at the comments that I've made. Much of the time, it just has to do with some formatting of your citations. Sometimes somebody has an APA formatted citation that accidentally got in there, and I'm just pointing out, hey, you need to make the changes. For some of you, I may have actually gone into Citation Machine and done the proper citation for you, and I plopped it down in a text box. I did not need to do that for very many of you. I think most of you are really, really good at doing these MLA citations for your Works Cited. And then there is also a page here, MLA Works Cited, a quick guide that is from the MLA website itself. They also have an interactive practice template. If you feel like messing around with something like that, you don't have to. And then some things to remember regarding the MLA Works Cited page. It's a separate part of your academic essay, so it actually begins on a whole new page. Please don't have it at the bottom of page 8 or at the bottom of page 10 just because you have a little bit of space. Click enter to make sure you get to a new page. It's formatted with the same font, the same spacing, and margins as the rest of your essay. There are some things to keep in mind. The Works Cited page starts with a title that is called Works Cited. It's centered at the top of the page. You don't need to bold it. You don't need to underline it. You don't need to put in quotes. You don't need to do anything fancy as long as it's centered and it says Works Cited. Then for your entries, make sure that you're back to left justification, right? So you don't want your whole thing centered. That makes it really hard for me to scan through your document to see that you have all the sources that you need to have. So next thing to keep in mind is the entries are listed by author's last name, first name, or the title. They are alphabetical in order, regardless of whether it's by the author's last name or by the title of the article or the web page. Don't alphabetize by articles that are in titles. And by that, I mean the grammatical part of speech, articles, a, an, or the. We ignore those mentally. They still stay in the title, but we don't alphabetize using those. Instead, you go to the first primary word in the title. And then make sure that you format each entry with a hanging indent. Just see a misspelling there. If you don't know what a hanging indent is, one of these videos, one of these formatting videos very likely explains how to do that. If not, you can simply Google how to do hanging indent in either Microsoft Word or in Google Docs, and you'll find a website that will give you the answer, maybe even a video. Probably not mine because those aren't public. So that's it for the, another thing, that is not it for the MLA Works Cited page. Keep in mind that if you are using the same sources and you're citing from those sources, those that you used in your annotated bibliography, you already have those citations done, right? You may have to go in and correct them a little bit, but you already have those citations done. The one thing I do not want to see, though, is a whole copy of your annotated bibliography at the end of your research paper. Please make sure that you go in and delete those annotations from your citations, right? So I just want to see a works cited page with only the works that are cited, not those annotations, okay? I just have to be clear with that. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen papers where students have just copied and pasted their whole annotated bibliography into their research paper. I mean, it's not a big deal, but yeah, it is kind of a big deal because then it's more stuff that my brain has to process and sift through when I'm looking at 20 plus 8 to 10 page papers. That's a lot of time for me. So please be considerate and get rid of those annotations, okay? Coolio. Next thing on the docket here is the actual assignment. So let's go back into week 9. There is another reading, incorporating sources into your own writing from the textbook. It's a short reading. It's in chapter 23, several pages. I'm sure there's plenty of charts and examples and that kind of stuff. So it's not super heavy duty reading. Again, for most of you, you're familiar with incorporating sources into your own writing. Some of you might need a little bit of a review for that. So please make sure that you read the textbook before you actually go and start quoting your sources. All right. We talked about all the lectures. So the next thing, yes, is the research argument rough draft here. So this is due the 27th. I think I made a mistake by saying the 20th into, no, 20th into, yeah. This is due the 27th. So 27th into the 28th. I think before I was looking at this week's due date, I actually mean to move that to the real due date, which is the 27th. If you submit it late into the 28th, again, you'll have to let me know so I make sure that you get a peer review assigned to you. Okay. Now let's go back to the assignment. So here for your assignment, you're choosing your topic, right? Write an 8 to 10 page researched argumentative essay. Here's a little switch up, right? So with the annotated bibliography, I asked for 8 sources, and there was a reason for that, because some of you may have discovered that all of the sources that you located may not be appropriate, right? So once you start writing and doing your research, you might be like, oh, you know what, this source isn't really relevant. So you have to have a minimum of at least 6 good research sources. 2 of them should be academic, scholarly journal articles, right? The rest of them can be popular sources as long as you think they are credible. And as long as I think they're credible, then you're good. So designing an effective argument is based upon several components that are interconnected or interrelated. We'll discuss and practice these components in a certain order because it's easier to talk about each part first and then work on integrating them as you work through drafting and revising. So this is a major writing assignment, right? This is the longest thing you're probably going to do in this class. Where you are developing your own ideas, right? You've come up with research questions and you've come up with a position. You have a topic that you hopefully are personally invested in. And now you're working with integrating sources, synthesizing that information, weaving it all together with your own unique view on the topic. And then you, of course, using proper formatting of your references to those sources. So we have this rough draft, then we have peer review due on the 1st, and then your revision is due a week from the due date for the rough draft. So of course, when you do the revision, you're expected to receive each of those, all the feedback that you get, and hopefully incorporate it. The essay requirements, length is 8 to 10 pages, right? That is not including the works cited page or pages. Let's go by the word count instead, 2,000 to 2,500 words. Try to meet at least halfway, right? Try to get to at least the halfway point. So 4 to 5 pages, 1,000 to 1,500 words would be, you know, the bare minimum. At least that gives me something to work with in my feedback to you, where I can maybe point you in the right direction with your research and that kind of thing. At the end, again, separate page for your works cited page. If you have lots of academic journals that have lengthy citations, lengthy titles, that may work out to be an extra page, right? So you might go into a second page for your works cited page. You don't have to try to squeeze them all onto one page. Of course, MLA format with your header, heading, make sure that the title is centered. There's 12-point font. that is double-spaced, 1-inch margins. Of course, I'm looking that you have a clear thesis statement that is most likely located in your introduction. You also should have claims and some counter arguments that will be supported by your sources. Integrate quotations, paraphrases, and summaries from 6 sources, 2 which are scholarly. Use correct MLA citations and include that Works Cited page. What is wrong with me? I have a typo here again, and I'm actually going to edit that right here. See, it's really good and important that you proofread and edit before you publish, right? Before you submit. So there we go. We have that fixed due date here at the bottom. Again, that's not correct either. It's November 1st, not November 3rd. Peer review is due on November 1st. There will be a reminder in the following week for that. One of these days, I'll get things all corrected before I actually publish and post it for students to see. There's also a rubric down at the bottom. So we're looking at format, at least 4 sources, right? 2 are scholarly. This is the minimum requirements, right? At least, I think this is a rubric from another class. Anyway, there might be a little change here. At least 6 sources, 2 of which are scholarly, at least 4 to 5 pages minimum for the rough draft. I'm also looking at MLA format, so making sure that you have your heading, title, page numbers, that it's double spaced, all of that stuff, right? Organized, that you have, simply introduction, body, and conclusion. If you don't have all of those things, we'll be indicating that on the rubric, making sure that you have an introduction and that your paper avoids announcing the thesis I'm going to tell you about, or this paper will explore, yada, yada, yada. Make sure that you have a thesis statement, that it clearly presents the essay's focus, contains a topic, a stance, and a direction for the essay. 1 idea per paragraph, and that each paragraph is fully developed. I'm also looking to make sure that you have a counter argument. I'll be looking at sentences to make sure that they're clear, concise, and direct. Also, documentation and integration of sources, so making sure that you have proper MLA in text citations. Making sure you have a complete Works Cited format with MLA guidelines. And lastly, I will also be looking at grammar and mechanics, right? So some evidence that you have made a good attempt at proofreading and editing your work before submitting. Perfect example here, even though I am a professional and I teach this stuff, sometimes there are things that I just miss, right? Like this right here that I edited live in this video. So proofreading and editing are, of course, important. So that said, that is the assignment. I'm going to adapt this so that it's correct. And then I'll be looking for your drafts. If you have any questions regarding this week's work, please feel free to reach out to me, especially if you feel that you are just getting, completely swamped. I know we're just getting past midterms and that kind of stuff. And you may have a lot of work that's piling up, and in addition to all of that other life stuff that may be going on. So if you feel that you might need some kind of an extension, please reach out to me via email. I almost always grant extensions. Don't just assume that I'm going to be okay with late work. It really irritates me if I know that a student, or it really irritates me if I don't know that a student has something going on in their lives that's barring them from completing work in a timely manner, right? So to just blow it off. That communication is really important because it shows me that you care. So when you fail to communicate, you fail to show me that you're caring about your work, even though you might. I'm not going to get angry if you need more time, right? I will give it to you. I get it. Life is busy. It's hard being a human being sometimes. So if I can provide you with a little bit of grace, I certainly will. Okay, everybody, have a fantastic week. Hang in there. Hold on for this crazy ride toward the end of the semester, and we'll be done soon. Bye-bye.